Hey, good morning, everybody. Grab your coffee. It's almost time to talk. I hope it's early enough for everybody. I'm getting my coffee. Coffee. So yeah, we got a lot to talk about this morning. It's a busy news day. I just posted my blog, which if you have two devices, you could open that up at the same time. If you have one device, don't leave me. Nunes stepped down. Did that just happen? Really? That'd be interesting. Talk about Bannon? Yeah, I think the Bannon thing, we'll never really know what's going on there. But to me, it looks like he either was bored with those meetings, or they were useless, or he did what he wanted to do. But never really, it doesn't look important to me. I think the Bannon story is a big nothing. Looks like just normal business. Hello, Hong Kong. Gowdy's going to tear this place up. People sure like Gowdy. He's got the popular thing going. Somebody asked me if he could be president, and I disparagingly said things about his just his persona, his I guess his brand, if you will. He's not as television ready as he could be, but he definitely is popular. All right, so let's talk about those chemical attacks in Syria. Something weird going on with my screen. There we go. So as I wrote this morning, and by the way, I'm going to give credit here to Mike Cernovich for being among the first to call bullshit on the Syrian gas attacks. All right. I wasn't really paying too much attention to it, but as soon as I saw Mike's tweet, I started looking into it, and it's just a little bit, as they say in Hollywood, a little bit too on the nose. And by that I mean, if you were writing a Hollywood script, you can't make it look too well designed, too perfect. It's got to be a little messy, or it won't look like real life. And this war crime, let me tell you what you'd have to believe in order to believe this is a war crime. You would have to believe that President Assad, who has been fighting for his life for however many years the Syrian conflict has been going on, fighting for his life every day, it's like a fight for survival. And then finally, when things are looking good, he's got a Trump administration that doesn't want to depose the regime. ISIS is being beaten back. His Russian overlords are, apparently okay with him at the moment. Everything's starting to go right for the Assad regime, at least as right as it can in this situation. And so what does he allegedly do? He commits a war crime that kills a few dozen people for no strategic value whatsoever. Why do you do that? In what world do you commit a war crime for no strategic reason when everything's going right? Is there any world in which that makes sense? Now, here are a few other things to take into consideration. Number one, wasn't this thing suspiciously well documented? Seems like there were a lot of cameras there, don't you think? For a place that has no press, because there's bad shit happening there every single day, and I don't see video of it all. Every once in a while, but it seems to me that there's no legitimate press operating there. So, any video looks as credible as any other video, I guess. Now, the other thing that's a little bit too on the nose, if you were going to design a trap for President Trump in particular, this president in particular, dead babies is the way you're going to go, because that's his button. Dead babies that's his button. So that is exactly what you would do. You'd also pick something that he's already talked tough about, right? So Obama failed to do something when there was a prior alleged chemical attack. And so this puts Trump in the position of either, being a gigantic pussy by, not doing enough to respond, or responding too much, and it was probably a fake event anyway. It's possible that the gas itself was real, but in terms of who did the deed, I think there's a big question there. So it's sort of a little bit too perfect, isn't it? Just a little too perfect. And in any event, let's say it was real. Let's say it really was Assad deciding to do literally the dumbest thing anyone ever did. Let's just say that's real, okay? That Assad decided to do the dumbest thing anyone, any leader, any human, any person ever did, which was to launch a war crime chemical attack on his own people for no strategic purpose, just when things are going right for him, right? Let's say that really happened. What would be our best response if we're not exactly sure, 100% sure if it really happened? The best response is to do nothing and see if it happens again. Because if it's a fake staged event, it's really hard to do it twice, right? It's hard to do it once, but pulling it off twice would be pretty hard. We almost have to wait to see if it happens again, right? The one that happened a while ago, I don't know the details of that. I'm not sure if you could call that. I'm not sure if you could call the second one, more of the same, or if it was, different in some nature. Why was McShame over there? Who's that? So what I suggested is, if you're a master persuader and your problem is that you have to talk tough, but you don't want to be suckered into a World War III, the best way to deal with a fake war crime is with a fake response. And here's how you can do it. Now, I would stop short of saying this is a prediction. It's just one way that a master persuader could handle it. In the normal course of events, there will be bad stuff happening to Assad and his generals because they're in a war zone, right? Everybody wants to kill them. Cars blow up, bombs fall in the wrong place. There's stuff happening. President Trump can pursue his usual strategy, which is to say that unlike other presidents, he never discusses military options. So that makes everybody wonder what he's doing. So our press will say, well, I think he's getting ready to respond. I think I saw some warships heading in that direction, and there's some reports of some troops coming in, and we don't know what they're for, so they must be part of this Damascus attack or something. And you just sort of keep waiting, right? So the longer you wait, the longer you know if these gas attacks are a new strategy or a one-off. So that's useful. And the longer you have a war in people's minds. So if people are wargaming in their mind that he's getting ready to attack Damascus, the attack is sort of already happening. It's just happening in your mind. You keep thinking about it and you're imagining Damascus attacked and Russia getting mad and nuclear weapons on high alert. So you could actually exhaust yourself with this war without actually having a war. So if you wait long enough, the public will basically fight the war in their heads because they keep imagining what's going to happen next. Then you just wait for some natural event to happen. Some general dies in a bombing, some Syrian general. Something happens to Bassad's family member. Maybe a brother-in-law gets killed in a car bomb or something like that. And suddenly the news will say, was that it? Was that the measured response? Oh, it was a war crime that didn't kill a billion people. It killed dozens, which is a tragedy, of course. But in terms of scale, if he was trying to respond in scale, killing a family member, that would be about right, right? So, so Trump doesn't actually have to do anything. He could just wait because some bad shit will happen to somebody associated with Assad in the next month. It's just sort of the way things are over there. And when it happens, he just has to say, "I don't talk about stuff," and the media will say, "Hey, I think he killed Assad's brother." So I'm just speculating here. This is short of a prediction, right? I'm just saying that one way to deal with a fake war crime, if that's what this is, it looks like it's staged to me, is with a fake response. You just keep your secrecy and wait for something to happen on its own and claim credit for it. That's what I do. So if you're trying to figure out, if you're looking for a confirmation that this is fake, let me tell you what persuasion tells to look for, all right? So far, I've talked about things that may have happened in the past, all right? And it's easy to talk about things that happened in the past and put your pet theory on them, because lots of theories fit the past. It's easy to do, right? So that doesn't mean your theory is right, because lots of theories fit the past. It's easy to make something look like, oh, this is my explanation for what happened. It's hard to predict, right? So if one of the theories fits the past and it predicts, well, that's probably a little stronger theory, right? So I'm going to give you a prediction that would be consistent with this being a fake attack and trying to goad the president into war. Look for the major media outlets, and let's say the New York Times in particular, a big critic of Trump. See what they say about the idea of going to war or getting tough with Syria. Let's see if they're all in on stopping that from happening. Because if they are, that would look like business as usual, right? That would look like them opposing Trump in the usual way, because they would be afraid that he's going to cause trouble and he's Hitler. So if you're being consistent, New York Times, with the past, you would be anti-war if Trump is sounding like he wants to go to war. All right, so you should just disagree with everything he says if you want to be consistent. But if you see the New York Times being suspiciously okay with the idea of attacking Damascus, you're going to have to ask yourself why. And so I started looking for that today just to see if I could see, just in the phrasing, the wording, the lack of sarcasm. It's almost the lack of something more than the finding of something. But look for a pattern where the New York Times in particular seems to be a little more favorable toward a strong response to this chemical warfare than other media outlets. Maybe a little more pro-war than, let's say, Fox News. Suppose you see Fox News being sort of standoffish, because normally you expect a lot of hawks to be on the conservative station, and you'd expect the liberal outlets to be against war. But if you see that reverse, that would be a tell. The dog that didn't bark, exactly. Thanks for reading my last book. It isn't fake news, but flat news. I don't know about that. Read Seymour Hersh. Why does Seymour Hersh always seem to know what's going on with stuff? Where's he getting his reporting? Why can't anybody else get that? McCain is trying to start this war. Well, not alone, I'm sure. Imagine how much money is riding on a war. Look at all these defense contractors. Look how much money they make if there's a proper war that takes out Syria. There's a lot of people with a lot of money on the line here. And I want to give you like another interesting little thought. History is the study of things that happened, right? So when you study history, you don't really study the things that didn't happen. You study the things that happened. And so it's easy to miss the biggest events, because sometimes the biggest event is the decision that wasn't made. the thing that didn't happen, right? And there's a weird little thing that just happened, which is, I would say that it's not impossible. This is potentially true. That Mike Cernovich just stopped World War III. I'm just going to like pause while you think about that. Just think about that. So Cernovich is really the first I saw who came out and just called it bullshit, the Syrian gas attack. Who just flat out said, "Don't go to war. This is a fake." And I have to admit, I wasn't paying attention until I saw it from him. And now I've written about it. You're hearing about it. And between the two of us, Cernovich, his audience, and mine, that's big enough that the rest of the world has trouble ignoring it, right? Because there are enough people following both of us at this point that any good idea will spread, any bad idea won't. And I think in this particular case, Mike was on it correctly and first that I saw. There might have been somebody else saying it, but he was the first big name that I saw. Talib too? Well, there you have it. There you have it. I don't know who went first, but in terms of publicity and reach and size and voice that matters and persuasiveness and all that, yeah, Ron Paul as well. Ron Paul, however, is the least persuasive person on earth. No matter what you think about his message, he's terribly unpersuasive. He needs some help on that. So yes, I think there's a non-zero chance that Mike Cernovich single-handedly, with help, right, but more importantly than other people, he may have prevented World War III. We'll see. We might still have World War III, and then it's all wrong. But he might have. So did people die or no? I doubt the gas attacks were faked in the sense that they were just fake videos of things that didn't happen. Although that's possible. You can't rule that out. But a little more likely would be there was a real gas attack with real gas, and but it wasn't from Assad. There are leak videos of what? Oh, why would they need to wear gloves? Well, I'm using all the wrong language for this because whether it's gas or nerve agent or chemical, there's probably terms of art that I'm using incorrectly. I'm conflating it all like it's one big thing just because I don't know the difference. Why doesn't Assad say something? That's a really good question, isn't it? Dead woman opened her eyes. Yeah, you can't make too much of that. I saw that video where the alleged dead woman opened her eyes, but who said she was allegedly dead? You just sort of assumed she was, and then she opened her eyes a little bit. Maybe she was dying. Maybe it was the last hour of her life. You can't really make anything of that. One person on the video that you don't know anything about opened her eyes a little bit. Some feet wiggled. Assad denied it now? They did bomb a weapons cache nearby. Yeah. Isn't Syria just as Russia via proxy? Well, I don't think Russia has total control on them. Revenge for St. Petersburg. I doubt it. I haven't read The Quiet American. Some people say Turkey has these weapons. Yeah, there's probably a lot of bad people who could get those weapons. Who benefits from a fake attack? The military-industrial complex. Anybody who wants to get rid of Assad because they want more, let's say, American influence over the Middle East. Here's a little eye-opener I heard just yesterday. And by the way, if you haven't heard this, this is really, really big deal. All right, I'm going to tell you something that you probably don't know, and not many people know. I just happened to talk to one of the few people in the world who would know. It turns out that nuclear fusion, the science fiction type of fuel of the future that will be infinite and not have any risk of meltdown and just give us free energy forever. It turns out that pipe dream of many years is probably 5 years away, because it turns out that the physics of it have all been solved, and it's been reduced to an engineering problem. And engineering problems, you can usually predict how long before they're solved. Science problems, you can't, because you need to discover something, right? And nobody knows when you're going to discover something. But engineering problems tend to be A/B testing, and you just move down the highway at a certain rate. And so one of the smartest people in this field told me yesterday, I won't name names in this case, that is probably 5 years away, with confidence that it's probably about 5 years away. Now, it will take longer for that to be fully implemented and commercialized and all that stuff. But what's that do to the Middle East? It makes the entire Middle East irrelevant in 20 years. All right? So the smartest person I know in that area who's close to it, the fusion development, says that the Middle East will be irrelevant in 20 years. And if it's going to be irrelevant in 20 years, you sort of need to get ready for that now, right? I mean, I'm not sure what it means for them to be irrelevant. Maybe they have more terrorists or whatever. But things are going to be really, really different there in 20 years, because the whole oil economy thing is going to be shrinking. Now, it'll still be big for a long time, right? It'll take a long time to get rid of oil from the economies. But what matters is which direction it's heading. When things are going well, it's a whole different world than when things are shrinking, because people will get into more of a defensive mode then. Good coffee. Yeah, most power plants don't run on oil, but if you have infinite electricity, you don't need oil, because eventually everybody drives a Tesla, right? Yeah, we'll still need oil, but just less of it. So the thing would be, once you reach a level where you can get all of your oil domestically, and there just isn't any reason to, I suppose it might be cheaper still in the Middle East. But yeah, and we'll use it for plastics and medicine, but it won't be nearly as big a deal as it is now. Batteries limit the uptake of electric cars. Well, batteries will be solved in 5 years too. You're probably going to get 600 miles on a charge in 5 years. Eisenhower originally called it military congressional complex. That does sound right, doesn't it? Because military industrial complex. Yeah, that does sound a little different. So isn't it weird that the Syrian situation is literally the I just now realized this. I'm sorry I started laughing in the middle of my sentence. But if you're reading the news about Syria and the alleged chemical attack, Russia is claiming that it's because they bombed a weapons depot that had some chemicals in it. And to think about the irony, this is the first time the Russians have taken responsibility for something that had to do with America. And the one time that they take responsibility for it, saying that they bombed this weapons depot, is the one time they probably didn't have anything to do with it. So, if there's one thing you could trust about the Russians, is if they take credit for it, it didn't happen, and if they're blamed for it, maybe it did. Do you think Iran did it? Why would Iran do it? Doesn't Iran support Assad? Why would they want to wipe out their ally? It was Israel. I would say the odds of it being Israel. What would Israel get out of that? Less Assad? I don't know. He's pretty weakened at the moment. ISIS. No. If you follow the money, it looks like an American inside job. Meaning the who could gain, right? So Russia couldn't gain by doing it. Iran couldn't gain. Israel couldn't gain. The American government couldn't gain directly. The only ones who gain would be anyone who wants Trump out of business. Anybody who wants, the United States to be conquering the Middle East instead of just trying to calm it down. And anybody who wants to sell weapons. Those are the only people who have something to gain from this, right? I wouldn't make too much of the McCain trips. Erdogan, if I said his name right, I don't know why Turkey would have any interest in being behind a gas attack. Really, just follow the money, because there's no military benefit for any of it. ISIS would gain? Yeah, ISIS would gain. ISIS would gain, that's true. If they took out. No, ISIS wouldn't even gain. See, the thing is that if Assad is deposed, so let's think this through. Let's say the Assad regime is destroyed, either because of a reaction to the chemical attacks or any other reason. Let's say the Assad regime is destroyed. Who does that put in its place? Russia, right? Russia will either put in their own puppet or Russia will just occupy it. It's their land. They can do whatever the hell they want with it. It's not officially their land, but the Russian military, once it's there, they sort of own it. Chipmunk. Talib is talking about it. He's skeptical it's Assad. The thing I always say about Talib, and I always worry I'm pronouncing his name wrong, because I only see it written. I never hear anybody say it out loud. Talib. The thing I say about him all the time is that if he disagrees with me, you should immediately take his side, because he's like me if I were way, way smarter. All right. So Talib, is that the way you say it? Talib. Are Kardashians relevant? Let's talk about Nunes for a closer. I didn't see the news on that, on Nunes. Remember his fight with Daniel Kahneman? I don't. I saw the Pepsi ad. I thought that was a lot of nothing. I'm not too interested in Pepsi. Nunes out, Trey Gowdy in. Well, that will be interesting. Okay, I'm going to read up on that, because that makes it really interesting. Yeah, I'll just have to read up on that. I'm underinformed. Yeah, this whole chemical attack is just a little too perfect. All right. So if we don't have World War III, It's only because the public the public is causing it not to happen. You know, I've said before that the republic is already history. Right? The United States is formed as a republic. That's our form of government. But social media has made that irrelevant, except for small decisions that the public doesn't care about. But whenever the public understands the issue or thinks it does and gets involved, the republic has to do what the public says. So social media is the new government right now, but only in the specific situation where it can focus on an opinion. If it's just confused like healthcare and it doesn't know what to do because there are too many options and they're too complicated, in that case, the republic, along with the lobbyists, end up writing all the laws, doing whatever they want. But in a case where it's war or no war, and we have the same information the government has, which is basically just whatever the news tells us, then the public can weigh in. And I think the days of the president, even the commander-in-chief, going to war because he decided on his own may be over, except in very near-term, dire circumstances where you want the president to act fast. But where you have the luxury of time, the government no longer controls war. They don't. The public controls it now. I think that's a change. And when I say the public, I mean people on social media who are influential, because they're the ones changing the public's mind. So I think social media is your new government for any decision that the public can understand or think they understand. CNN is spinning the gas attack. Yeah, watch how CNN spins it and how New York Times spins it, and that'll tell you if it's fake. The Illuminati, yeah. So there have been a lot of questions about the Illuminati and what I know about them. And I can tell you that I've learned quite a bit about the Illuminati. And usually these are the sort of things you'll never hear anywhere. So this will be the first time you ever heard it. But let me tell you, the Illuminati is definitely